I still remember the exact moment my world developed its first crack. It wasn't a loud, shattering event, but a subtle, silent fissure that began in the space between my wife and me. It was a Tuesday evening in October. The air was crisp with the coming cold, and our home was filled with the scent of the garlic bread I just pulled from the oven. I leaned in to kiss her, a gesture I had performed thousands of times over our 7 years of marriage, as natural as breathing. But this time, Clara flinched. It was barely a movement, a slight recoiling of her shoulders, a stiffening of her neck. But to me, it was a seismic shift. Her body, once a familiar landscape, had suddenly become foreign territory. And then there was the scent. It wasn't her usual perfume, the light, floral one I bought her every anniversary. This was something else, a man's cologne, acrid and sweet, lingering on the delicate skin behind her ear. It was the scent of a stranger in my home, on my wife. That's when she said the words that would echo in the hollow chambers of my heart for months to come. "Don't touch me, Leo." Her voice was not angry or annoyed. It was cold, distant, like she was speaking to a stranger who had invaded her personal space on a crowded train, not her husband. The cologne wasn't mine. I knew because I don't wear cologne. Never have. Allergies. I pulled back, something inside me, breaking quietly as I watched her turn away, her shoulders tense beneath the silk blouse I'd given her for her birthday. The emerald green one. "I'm just tired," she mumbled, her eyes refusing to meet mine. "Work has been crazy. The Henderson account is killing me." I nodded, stepping back, granting her the space she so suddenly, so desperately, seemed to need. "Sure," I said, my voice feeling disconnected from my body. "I understand." Oh, but I didn't understand. Not really. Not yet. For weeks, she had been distant. The shared laughter that once filled our evenings had faded into polite, clipped conversations. The easy intimacy had been replaced by a carefully constructed wall. I had attributed it to stress, to the pressures of her demanding job. I had tried to be supportive, to give her space, believing it was a storm we would weather together, as we always had. But this was different. The flinch, the cologne, the icy command, this was deliberate. This was a line being drawn in the sand. That night, I lay awake beside her, a chasm of cold sheets between us. I listened to her breathing, searching for the deep, rhythmic sound of peaceful sleep I had grown so accustomed to over the years. Instead, her breaths were shallow, controlled, the breathing of someone feigning slumber. Her phone, resting on the nightstand, buzzed once. Then again. She didn't move, but in the dim light filtering through our bedroom curtains, I saw her eyelids flutter. I didn't reach for the phone. I didn't need to. Not yet. But I knew. You know how people talk about their gut feeling? That primal instinct that screams a warning before your conscious mind can process the threat. Mine was a silent, deafening alarm, blaring through every cell in my body. The logical part of my brain was still trying to find excuses, to rationalize her behavior. But my gut knew the truth. It knew the scent of betrayal. I've never been one for dramatic confrontations or explosive outbursts. It's not how I process things. My brother, Marcus, always said I overthink everything, that I analyze situations to death instead of just reacting. He was probably right. So I watched and I waited. I became a silent observer in my own life, cataloging the small inconsistencies, the subtle lies, the growing distance between us. The next morning, the crack widened into a chasm. Clara was up before me, a phenomenon so rare it was practically unheard of. I was always the one to make coffee, to start the day, while she burrowed deeper under the covers, groaning about needing just 5 more minutes. But that day, she was already dressed in her running clothes when I opened my eyes. "Going for a run," she said, her focus unnaturally fixed on tying her shoelaces. "Might be a long one. Don't wait on breakfast for me." It was 5:30 a.m. In 7 years of marriage, I had never known Clara to voluntarily wake up before 7 unless the house was on fire. "Okay," I said, my voice still rough with sleep. "Have a good run." She didn't kiss me goodbye. She didn't even look at me as she left the room. The front door clicked shut. I lay there for exactly 3 minutes, the silence of the house pressing down on me. Then I slid out of bed and moved to the window, my bare feet cold against the hardwood floor. I watched as she walked down the driveway. I saw her get into her car, and I heard the distinct click-clack of heels on the pavement, not the soft thud of running shoes. She wasn't going for a run. She was meeting someone. And in that cold, gray dawn, with the weight of that simple, undeniable truth, I made a decision. I wasn't going to confront her in a tear-filled rage. I wasn't going to throw accusations around or demand explanations. That would give her the chance to lie, to manipulate, to turn the tables on me. Number I was going to know for sure. I was going to have proof before I said a single word. I showered quickly, the hot water doing little to warm the ice that had formed in my veins. I dressed in jeans and a dark blue sweater, clothes that would allow me to blend in, to become invisible. I wasn't going to follow her in my own car. She would have recognized it immediately. Instead, I called an Uber. When the car arrived, a man with a thick mustache and kind eyes named Kevin greeted me. "Where to, man?" "See that silver Audi a quarter mile ahead?" I asked, my voice steady despite the tremor in my soul. "I need you to follow it. Stay a safe distance back." Kevin gave me a long, knowing look in the rearview mirror. It was a look that held a universe of shared human experience, of suspicion, of heartbreak, of truths we wish we didn't have to uncover. "Been there," he said quietly. "Hope you're wrong." "Me too," I whispered, though I knew I wasn't. We followed Clara for 30 minutes, the city slowly waking around us. She drove with a purpose that made my stomach tighten, eventually pulling into the parking lot of the Lakeside Hotel. It was a place known for two things: its discretion and its expensive rooms with sweeping views of the water. It was not the kind of place you go for a business meeting at 6 in the morning. "Want me to wait?" Kevin asked as he pulled over across the street. I shook my head. "I might be a while." He hesitated, then scribbled something on the back of a receipt and handed it to me. "My number. Call if you need a ride back, or someone to talk to." The small kindness almost broke me. It's funny how that works. You can hold yourself together through the monumental betrayals, the earth-shattering revelations. But it's the small moments of unexpected humanity from a stranger that can threaten to unravel you completely. I tucked the paper into my pocket, thanked him, and got out of the car. I watched Clara enter the hotel, her stride confident, purposeful. She didn't look around nervously or check to see if anyone was watching. This wasn't her first time. The thought was a fresh stab of pain. Following her inside immediately would have been too risky. Hotels have security cameras, staff trained to spot people who don't belong. I was a strategist, not an impulsive fool. So I walked around the building, studying its layout. The lakeside was U-shaped, with rooms facing both the street and the water. I positioned myself at a small cafe across the street, one with outdoor seating that offered a clear view of most of the hotel's windows. I ordered a coffee I had no intention of drinking and opened my laptop, creating the illusion of a man working remotely, and then I waited. 20 minutes later, he appeared. Grant Sterling, Clara's boss, the man whose name had been appearing on our home caller ID with increasing frequency, the man whose cologne I had smelled on my wife's neck. He crossed the lobby with the easy confidence of someone who believed themselves untouchable. Expensive suit, perfect haircut, a wedding ring glinting on his left hand. I knew his wife, Eleanor. We'd had dinner with them twice. She collected vintage teacups and had a laugh that was a little too loud. They had twin daughters in college. I watched him enter the elevator, and I knew exactly where he was going. I didn't need to find out the room number or risk exposure by lurking in the hallways. I could confirm everything I needed to know from right where I sat. Arrogance, I was learning, makes people careless. Sure enough, 15 minutes later, I saw them. 4th floor, corner room with a balcony facing the lake. They hadn't bothered to fully close the curtains. It was another sign of their certainty that no one in their carefully curated world would ever be watching. I could see Clara's silhouette moving about the room, then Grant's joining hers. My hand was steady as I took out my phone. My heart was not. I used the camera's zoom, the digital lens creating a grainy, pixelated tableau of my life's destruction. I captured several clear photos. They weren't explicit enough to be vulgar, but they were damning nonetheless. Them embracing by the window, her distinctive emerald blouse falling to the floor, his hand on the small of her back, guiding her toward the bed that was out of my line of sight. It was enough, more than enough. I left money for the coffee and walked away, each step heavy with the weight of certainty. The silent alarm in my gut had been replaced by a cold, hard clarity. The time for suspicion was over. The time for a plan had begun. I didn't confront Clara when she returned home 3 hours later, her face flushed, claiming she'd had such a great run. "You should have seen the sunrise over the lake, Leo," she said, her voice bright and false. I didn't mention that I knew she'd seen that sunrise through the windows of room 412 at the Lakeside Hotel, with her boss's hands on her body instead of mine. "How was your run?" I asked casually, my eyes fixed on my laptop screen. She hesitated for a fraction of a second, a flicker of uncertainty crossing her face. "Good," cleared my head. "There's coffee," I said, still not looking at her. "Thanks." The air between us was thick with her lies and my silence. Later, she asked about my plans for the evening. "What time is your thing with Marcus tonight?" 7, I replied, as if everything was normal, as if I didn't know she was already planning her alibi. "Probably won't be home until late." "That's fine," she said quickly. Too quickly. "I have a lot of work to catch up on anyway. Might just stay at the office." "Sure," I said, finally looking up. Our eyes met, and for a fleeting moment, I thought I saw a glimmer of guilt, of fear that I might know. But it was gone as quickly as it came, replaced by the careful neutral mask she had been wearing for weeks. In that moment, watching her lie so effortlessly, I realized I had already begun to let her go. My conversation with my brother Marcus that afternoon was brief and to the point. I showed him the pictures on my phone. His face, usually so quick to joke, hardened into a mask of cold fury. "What are you going to do?" he asked, his voice low. "Confront her? I'll go with you." I shook my head. Number. That's what she'd expect. A big blow-up, tears, accusations. It would almost be a relief for her, I think, to have it all out in the open. It would let her play the victim. So what then? I took a sip of the beer he had handed me, the plan that had been forming in my mind, solidifying as I spoke. I'm going to give her exactly what she's been wanting. Distance, space. I'm going to become the ghost she's been treating me like. Marcus looked skeptical. "You're just going to, what, ignore her?" "Not exactly," I said. "I'm going to mirror her. Everything she's done to me, I'm going to do right back to her. The emotional withdrawal, the excuses, the absence. But I'm not going to give her the satisfaction of knowing why. She never gave me that courtesy." "MC, that sounds cold, Leo," he said carefully. I let out a hollow laugh that surprised even me. "Is it any colder than what she's doing? Lying to my face every day? Planning to use my fictional night out with my brother as her alibi while she sleeps with her boss?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "No," he finally said. "I guess it's not." That night, I didn't go home. I stayed at Marcus's place, sleeping on his lumpy couch. At 6:30 p.m., I texted Clara, "Running late with Marcus. Don't wait up." Her reply was almost instantaneous. "No problem. Swamped at work anyway. Might crash at a friend's if it gets too late." The plan was in motion. For the next 2 weeks, I implemented it with methodical precision. I became a perfect reflection of the wife she had become. I canceled the reservation at her favorite restaurant for our monthly date night. I forgot about the couple's massage she'd been looking forward to. The weekend trip to her parents' lake house? I told her I had to work. I started coming home late after she was already in bed, or pretending to be. I stopped asking about her day. I stopped initiating conversations. And most importantly, I stopped touching her entirely. No more goodbye kisses. No hand on the small of her back as we passed in the hallway. No reaching for her in the middle of the night. I became the husband she had turned me into, an emotionally distant roommate who shared her address but not her life. And it was driving her mad. The carefully constructed balance she had created, the one that allowed her to have her affair while keeping her comfortable life with me intact, was crumbling. "Are you mad at me?" she finally asked one night, cornering me in our bedroom as I changed my shirt. I looked at her with the same blank expression she had given me for months. "Number? Why would I be mad? You've been acting strange, distant." "Have I?" I asked mildly, turning to my closet. "I hadn't noticed." Her frown deepened. "Leo, if something's bothering you, just say it. Don't play these games." The irony was so thick I could have choked on it. She, the master of deception, was accusing me of playing games. But I held my ground, my expression unreadable. "Nothing's bothering me," I said calmly. "I'm just focused on other things right now." What other things?" she demanded, a hint of panic creeping into her voice. This was new territory for her. Me being the emotionally unavailable one, her having to chase my attention. I shrugged. "Work, life, the future." "Our future?" she pressed, taking a step toward me. I deliberately sidestepped her, moving toward the bathroom. "I'm going to take a shower." I closed the door before she could respond, leaning against the cool wood and listening to her frustrated sigh on the other side. This wasn't about revenge, not really. It was about reclaiming my dignity. It was about taking back my power in a situation where she had left me with none. While Clara was navigating the confusing new reality of our Cold War, I was busy laying the foundations for my new life. The betrayal had shattered my sense of stability, but in its place, it had forged a new kind of resolve. I was no longer playing it safe. 6 months prior, I'd been approached by a competing firm with a generous offer to lead my own team. I had turned them down out of loyalty to my current company, a loyalty that now seemed laughably naive. I reached out to my contact there, letting them know I was now interested if the offer still stood. It did, with a significant salary increase. I accepted, setting a start date for 1 month later. Next, I discreetly consulted with a divorce attorney, a sharp-eyed woman named Catherine Mercer. I wanted to understand my options before making any irreversible decisions. She reviewed our finances and gave me clear, practical advice. Document everything, she told me, her gaze steady, and start separating your finances now. Subtly. I'm not talking about hiding assets that's illegal and unethical, but ensure you have your own accounts, your own credit, your own safety net. When the time comes, you need to be able to stand on your own 2 feet immediately. I took her advice to heart. I opened a new bank account at a different bank and redirected a portion of my paycheck there. I made digital copies of all our important financial documents, mortgage papers, investment statements, tax returns, and stored them securely in the cloud. I began cataloging our shared assets, my mind working with a cold, detached efficiency. The affair, of course, continued. Twice more that week, Clara came home, smelling of his cologne, her eyes avoiding mine as she spun tales about working late or having drinks with colleagues. I said nothing. I simply observed, cataloging each lie, each betrayal, building my case in silence. Each lie she told was another brick in the wall she was building between us, and another stepping stone on my path out of our marriage. One evening, I ran into Iris from HR in the elevator at work. She had always been friendly, and we occasionally chatted about office politics. This time, however, she looked uncomfortable, avoiding my eyes as we rode down together. "Everything okay, Iris?" I asked gently. She hesitated, then turned to me, her expression filled with genuine concern. "Leo, I don't know if I should say anything, but there's been talk about Clara and Grant Sterling." My stomach tightened, but I kept my face a neutral mask. "What kind of talk?" "They've been seen together outside of work." "A lot," she said, her voice low. "And Grant, he has a history with female employees. The last woman who got involved with him ended up transferring to another branch when things went south. I thought you should know, because I respect you and because it's happened before." "Thank you for telling me, Iris," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "I appreciate it. You're a good guy, Leo," she said as the elevator doors opened. "You deserve better." That brief conversation confirmed what I had already suspected. This wasn't a momentary lapse in judgment. Clara wasn't just a participant in an affair. She was the latest installment in a long-running series. I was the last to know, the punchline to a joke the entire office had been sharing behind my back. The humiliation burned in my chest, a hot, acidic shame, but I channeled it. I channeled it into resolve. This wasn't just about Clara's betrayal anymore. This was about reclaiming my self-respect from everyone who had watched it happen in silence. On Friday, while Clara was at work, I made my final financial moves. I transferred my half of the upcoming month's bills into our joint account. Then, through a series of online forms, I removed my name from it entirely. I rerouted my direct deposit to my new, personal account. They were small, practical steps, but they felt monumental. They were the last threads connecting my financial life to hers, and I severed them without hesitation. That night, as Clara slept beside me or pretended to sleep, I could no longer tell the difference. I slipped one of the hotel photographs into her purse. I tucked it between her wallet and her day planner, a silent time bomb waiting to detonate. I wanted the discovery to come when she was alone, when I wasn't there to witness her reaction, when she couldn't immediately spin a web of lies to trap me in. I wanted her to sit with the cold, hard proof of her betrayal, alone. The next morning, I told her I was going fishing with Marcus for the day, another lie to mirror her own. In reality, I went to a small, furnished apartment I had rented the day before, 3 towns over. I spent the day setting up my new life, buying basic furniture, transferring utilities into my name, and arranging for my mail to be forwarded to a P.O. box. I was systematically erasing myself from the life we had built together. When I returned to the house that evening, the air was heavy and still. Clara was waiting for me in the living room. Her face was pale, her eyes red-rimmed. The photograph was clutched in her hand, the paper crinkled from the force of her grip. "What is this?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. I looked at the photograph as if seeing it for the first time, my expression carefully neutral. "It looks like you, standing in a hotel room, in your blouse." "Why do you have this?" she demanded, her voice rising with a frantic edge. "Have you been following me?" I didn't answer her question. Instead, I asked my own, my voice calm and cutting. "How long have you been sleeping with Grant Sterling?" The color drained from her face. For a moment, she looked like she might deny it, might try to spin some elaborate explanation. I could see the wheels turning in her mind, searching for an escape route, for one last lie. But then her shoulders sagged, the fight visibly going out of her. "It's not what you think," she said weakly. I laughed. The sound was harsh and ugly in our quiet living room. "It's exactly what I think, Clara. You've been having an affair with your married boss for what, months? While lying to my face every single day. While flinching away from my touch as if I disgusted you. While using me as your alibi so you could meet him at hotels." "Leo, please," she said, tears finally spilling down her cheeks. The performance had begun. "We can work through this. It was a mistake. It didn't mean anything." "And if it didn't mean anything, why did you do it?" I asked, a sliver of genuine curiosity cutting through my anger. "Was it worth it? Throwing away 7 years of marriage for someone who is never going to leave his wife for you?" Her head snapped up, a flash of defiance in her tear-filled eyes. "How do you know he won't leave Eleanor?" And there it was, the truth she hadn't meant to reveal. In that one defensive question, she had told me everything. She wasn't sorry about the affair. She was sorry she'd been caught before her fantasy, whatever it was, could come to fruition. "He won't," I said with absolute certainty. "Men like Grant don't leave their wives for their subordinates. It's bad for their image, bad for their finances. And even if he did, he'd cheat on you too. He has a history, Clara. You're not the first. Did you really not know that?" She blinked, confusion clouding her features. "What are you talking about?" "Ask around your office. Ask Iris in HR. Grant Sterling has a pattern. You're just the latest in a long line of women he's seduced and discarded. Congratulations on making the team." My words hit her like a physical blow. She staggered backward, sinking onto the couch. "You're lying," she whispered, but the doubt was plain in her eyes. "Why would I lie?" I asked. "What would I possibly gain from that? You're the one who's been lying, Clara, for months. To me, to yourself, probably to him too." I took a step closer, my voice dropping. "Does Eleanor know yet, or are you all still pretending this is a secret?" Clara's face crumpled, her carefully constructed narrative falling apart around her. "I love him," she choked out, her voice small and broken. It was the final blow. Worse than the discovery, worse than the lies, worse than the betrayal. The admission that she had given her love to another man while still married to me. I nodded slowly, a strange sense of peace settling over me. The worst had happened, the truth was out, and I had survived it. "Then I hope you'll be very happy together," I said, my voice remarkably steady despite the earthquake happening inside me. "But you'll be building that happiness without me." I turned and walked toward the door, unable to stay in that house, with her, for another minute. "Where are you going?" she called after me. Panic, finally lacing her voice. I paused with my hand on the doorknob. "Out," I replied, using the same vague, dismissive tone she had used with me for weeks. "Don't wait up." And then I closed the door on our marriage. I spent that night in my new apartment, lying on a mattress on the floor and staring at an unfamiliar ceiling. I should have felt devastated, broken. Instead, I felt free. The uncertainty was gone, replaced by the grim reality of the situation. There was no more waiting, no more watching. There was only moving forward. The next morning, I called our mutual friend Owen. We had known him since college. He was the one who had introduced us. I told him everything, bluntly and without emotion. He was stunned, but he listened. "Clara is already spinning a narrative," I explained. "She'll tell everyone I was controlling, paranoid, emotionally abusive. She'll make herself the victim. I don't want revenge, Owen. I just want the truth to be known." I asked him to do something difficult, to post anonymously about the affair on a local community forum that many of our friends followed. No names, no photos, nothing that could be legally traced back to me. Just enough detail: a senior manager at a prominent firm, an affair with a married subordinate, a devastated husband, that people in our social circle would connect the dots. After some hesitation, he agreed. The post went up that afternoon. By evening, my phone was buzzing with messages, some expressing sympathy, others asking for confirmation. Clara called 17 times. I didn't answer. She left a string of voicemails, each one more frantic than the last, ranging from tearful apologies to furious accusations to desperate pleas for me to come home. I listened to each one, a detached observer of her unraveling, and then deleted them all. The narrative she had tried so hard to create had collapsed under the weight of the truth. The sympathetic glances she had been receiving turned to whispers behind her back. But the most significant ripple was one I never anticipated. 2 days later, I received a surprise visitor at my new workplace, Eleanor Sterling, Grant's wife. She asked if we could speak privately, and I took her to a nearby coffee shop. I received some interesting photographs in the mail, she said without preamble, sliding a manila envelope across the table. Inside were more explicit photos of Grant and Clara, ones I hadn't taken. These didn't come from me, I said immediately. Eleanor waved a dismissive hand, a steely glint in her eye. I know. They came from Grant's previous girlfriend. Apparently she's been waiting for the right moment to expose him. Your separation gave her the perfect opportunity. So, she looked at me, her expression a mixture of weariness and resolve. Don't look so surprised, Leo. I've known about Grant's activities for years. I chose to look the other way because it was easier than confronting the truth. It was easier than blowing up my life, the life of my daughters. So what's different this time, I asked. This time, he didn't just cheat. He got sloppy. He did it with a married woman whose husband was smart enough to find out. This time, there are consequences beyond our front door, she said. And frankly, I'm done. Neither of them deserves protection. What are you going to do? I've already done it, Eleanor replied, taking a sip of her tea. I've filed for divorce, frozen our joint accounts, and sent copies of these photos, along with a detailed history of Grant's pattern of pursuing subordinates, to the company's board of directors. They can either deal with him, or they can deal with a very public, very messy lawsuit from me. I studied her face, seeing not a victim, but a formidable opponent who had been pushed too far. She was a woman reclaiming her own power, and in a strange way, we were allies. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because you deserve to know that you are not alone in this, she said, and because I want you to know that neither of them is going to win, not this time. The company, as Eleanor predicted, went into damage control. Grant Sterling was placed on administrative leave pending an investigation. With Eleanor's evidence and the renewed courage of other women to speak up, his career was over. Clara, now collateral damage in a much larger scandal, quietly resigned a week later. The fallout was swift, brutal, and complete. 6 weeks after I walked out the door, our divorce was finalized. The settlement was clean and fair. We sold the house and split the proceeds. No alimony, no ongoing entanglements. A clean break. I signed the papers without emotion, watching as Clara did the same, her face streaked with tears. It was the first time I'd seen her in person since that night. She looked smaller, diminished. Is this really what you want? She asked as we left the attorney's office. To just walk away without even trying? I looked at her, truly looked at her, for a long moment. This isn't what I wanted, Clara. I wanted our marriage. I wanted you to be the person I thought you were, but we don't always get what we want. You didn't love me enough to be faithful, and I don't love myself little enough to forgive that. I walked to my car without looking back. Some endings don't get neat resolutions. Some endings are just endings. My new job was exactly the fresh start I needed. The work was challenging, my colleagues were supportive, and no one knew me as the guy whose wife cheated on him. For the first time in years, I felt like I was building something for myself, not for us. 3 months after the divorce, I was leading a project that required collaboration with a different department. That's how I met Sloane. She was a product designer with a sharp mind and an even sharper sense of humor. She was nothing like Clara. She wore mismatched socks on purpose, collected vintage cameras, and had a loud, unrestrained laugh that turned heads. We started as colleagues, became friends, and then slowly, cautiously, something more. I was guarded at first, the wounds from my marriage still tender. But Sloane was patient. She understood my hesitation without taking it personally. Everyone has baggage, Leo, she told me one night as we walked along the river. The important thing is finding someone who helps you carry it, not someone who adds to the load. 6 months after the divorce, a letter arrived, forwarded from my P.O. box. It was from Clara, For a moment, I considered throwing it away, unread. But curiosity won out. The letter was brief. She was in Chicago working at a new firm, seeing a therapist. She apologized, not with the desperate pleading of her voicemails, but with a quiet acknowledgement of the pain she had caused. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She just wanted me to know that she understood now what she had thrown away. I folded the letter and put it away. There was a time when that apology would have meant everything. Now, it was just words on paper from someone who had become a stranger. I didn't write back. There was nothing left to say. Last week, I took Sloane to dinner at a new restaurant overlooking the city. As we sat across from each other, the soft candlelight catching in her dark hair, I realized something profound. I wasn't carrying the weight of my failed marriage anymore. I wasn't defining myself by Clara's betrayal. I was simply present, enjoying the company of a woman who saw me clearly and liked what she saw. "What are you thinking about?" Sloane asked, her smile warm. "The future," I said honestly, "and how sometimes you have to lose what you thought you wanted to find what you actually need." Later that night, as we walked back to my apartment, our apartment, really, though we hadn't made it official, she asked a question that caught me off guard. "Do you ever worry that what happened before might happen again with us?" I stopped walking, turning to face her under the glow of a street lamp. "I used to," I admitted. "For a long time, I thought I'd never trust anyone again. I thought I'd always be waiting for the other shoe to drop. And now?" She pressed, her eyes searching mine. "Now I realize that living that way isn't really living at all," I said, reaching for her hand. "I can't control what other people do. I can only control how I choose to live. And I choose to believe in this. I choose to believe in the possibility of something good, even knowing the risks." Sloane's smile was soft and understanding. "That's very brave." I shook my head, squeezing her hand gently. "It's not brave, it's necessary." As we continued walking, hand in hand, I thought about the journey that had brought me to this moment. From the man whose world developed a crack when his wife flinched, to the man who walked away from the wreckage and rebuilt his life from the foundations up. The pain of the past hadn't disappeared entirely, but it had transformed. It was no longer a crushing weight, but a scar, a reminder of a battle fought and survived. And under the vast, starry sky, with a woman I was learning to love by my side, I knew, with a quiet certainty that settled deep in my bones, that I was going to be fine. The alternative, closing yourself off from the world, was no way to live at all.